Today, we're going to perform an autopsy on a dynasty. We're going to peel back the layers on the rise, the fall, and the really weird evolution of what was, for a long time, America's most powerful criminal empire, the Gambino family. And you know, our story doesn't start at the beginning. It starts with a single gunshot that brought down a king.
Right, so we're not starting this from page 1. We're jumping right into the most dramatic moment, the end of an era. We're talking about a public execution right out in the open that just changed the entire game and put a new, very different king on the throne.
I mean, just try to picture this scene. It's December 16th, 1985, the middle of Manhattan, rush hour, just before Christmas. The streets are packed with shoppers, traffic's a nightmare, and right here, outside of Sparks Steakhouse, one of the city's most famous restaurants, a civil war is about to break out, right there on the sidewalk. Okay, look at the precision of this thing. This wasn't some sloppy, chaotic shootout. No, this was planned like a military operation. You've got the hit team dressed in matching trench coats and hats to confuse any witnesses, and the guy who planned it all, John Gotti, he's parked just a block away watching the whole thing go down. He wants a front row seat. The second Castellano's car pulls up, the team just swarms it. It's over in seconds. And then, the ultimate power move. Gotti has his driver cruise slowly past the bodies. The king is dead. Long live the king.
A hit this public this loud, it's not just a murder. It's a statement, a message to the entire underworld. But what exactly was the message? Well, to get that, we need to zoom in on the two guys at the center of this whole thing because they were two completely different kinds of mob boss.
So you have the reigning monarch, Paul Castellano, and then you have the challenger, the usurper, John Gotti. And this wasn't just a simple power grab. This was a war for the soul of the entire Gambino family.
And this slide just lays out the divide perfectly. On one side, you've got Castellano, living in this huge mansion on Staten Island, his own cruise called the White House. He was a businessman, a corporate guy. He wore expensive suits, and he wanted the family to operate like a quiet, legitimate corporation. And then, you've got Gotti's crew. They're hanging out in these grimy social clubs in Little Italy, wearing tracksuits, making their money the old-fashioned way, on the streets. They saw themselves as the real deal, the actual gangsters.
In this quote, which the FBI picked up on a wiretap, I mean, it just says everything, doesn't it? He ain't one of us. This wasn't a debate over business strategy. This was deep, personal resentment. For Gotti and his guys, Castellano wasn't just a bad boss. He was an outsider who didn't get their world.
So what was the final straw? It wasn't about money, it wasn't about turf, it was about respect. Aniello Della Croce was Gotti's mentor, a legend on the street. When Della Croce died, Castellano didn't even show up to the wake. In their world, that was the ultimate sign of disrespect. For Gotti, that was it. This wasn't business anymore. It was personal. 2 weeks later, Paul Castellano was dead on the street.
See the gold gleam, yeah. First hit the like, then you better subscribe. The Lifestyle Official, you feeling the vibe.
So, with Castellano out of the way, John Gotti takes the throne, and he did not rule from the shadows, oh no. He ruled from the front pages of the New York Post, loving the spotlight, becoming the infamous Teflon Don.
So what was Gotti's empire built on? Well, it starts with this simple number, 2%. That was the mob tax the Gambinos charged on pretty much every major construction project in Manhattan worth over $2 million. They controlled the unions, formed what was called the Concrete Club, and basically, you couldn't put up a skyscraper in New York City without them getting a piece of the action.
And they were smart, you gotta give them that. Just look at this gas tax scam. It was brilliant, in a criminal kind of way. They'd create this long chain of fake companies, just on paper. The very last company in the chain would sell gas to actual gas stations, collecting all the federal and state taxes. And then, poof, the company would just disappear, overnight, without ever paying those taxes to the government. The result? Millions and millions in pure, untraceable cash.
I mean, they were basically a shadow government with their own economy. They controlled trucking in the garment district. They fixed prices for garbage collection. They extorted the unions on the waterfront. And behind the scenes, they were getting a huge cut from a massive heroin operation run by their Sicilian partners. They had their fingers in just about every pie that made New York City run. Now, Gotti's flashy style made him a media superstar, but it also painted a huge target on his back for the FBI. And in the end, his downfall wouldn't come from a rival gangster, but from the man standing right next to him.
And this is the sound of an empire starting to crack. The FBI finally got a bug planted in an apartment right over Gotti's social club.
and they hit the jackpot. This is Gotti himself, paranoid, angry, talking about his own number two, his underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano. The FBI now had the perfect weapon to turn them against each other.
Now, to understand just how huge what happens next is, you have to understand this one word, omerta, the code of silence. This was the absolute foundation of the mafia. You do not talk to the cops, you don't talk to the FBI, ever, for any reason. The penalty was death, simple as that. It was the one rule you never, ever broke.
But Sammy Gravano was about to shatter it into a million pieces. The FBI played him that tape of Gotti threatening him, and he knew he was a dead man. So he made a choice. He broke omerta. And he didn't just talk. He confessed to being involved in 19 different murders, making him the highest-ranking mobster in American history to become a government witness.
In the courtroom, Gravano was absolutely devastating. He just sat there, calmly and clearly, and laid out the entire inner workings of the family. He described murder after murder, and for each one he pointed the finger straight at Gotti as the one who gave the order. He single-handedly ripped that Teflon coating right off. The Dapper Don was done for. Life in prison.
But here's the twist. John Gotti going to prison? That wasn't the end of the Gambino family. Not even close. It was just the end of an era. The family didn't die. It just went back into the shadows. It evolved. The next generation of bosses learned the big lesson from Gotti's downfall. They went back to the playbook of the original boss, the guy the family is named after, Carlo Gambino. And his philosophy was simple. Invisibility is power. No more flashy suits, no more media headlines. Just shut up and make money.
And this table is just fascinating because it shows you exactly how they changed. Look at construction. Their old bread and butter, way down. But look at gambling. It's exploded, from street-level bookies to massive offshore betting websites. It's a billion-dollar business now. And check out the brand new category at the bottom, cyber fraud, worth an estimated $400 million a year. They basically traded their hard hats for keyboards.
So this is the Gambino family today. There's no single public boss anymore. It's a quiet ruling panel, which makes it much harder for the feds to prosecute them. Their new rackets are things like healthcare fraud and crypto scams. And they've gone global. They outsource their muscle to other, tougher street gangs and even partner with Russian hackers for their cybercrimes. It's a leaner, smarter, and way more invisible organization.
Which brings us to the big, final question, right? The FBI took down the most famous gangster in modern history. It was a huge victory. But today, the organization he ran is less violent, way more profitable, and almost totally invisible. So, was the mob really defeated, or did it just learn from its mistakes, adapt, and evolve into something new that we can't even see anymore?